Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'm going to review the film Project Hail Mary. So I had very high expectations for this movie, and I think to say that would actually be putting it pretty lightly. This has been one of my most anticipated movies of the year, ever since it was even announced. And why is that? Well, because there's so much talent involved that made me know it would likely be good before we even got a trailer. You have it based on a book by Andy Weir, which I haven't read, but it's the same author as the book The Martian, which was made into a movie, which I loved. This movie is written by Drew Goddard, a talented screenwriter who also wrote the Martian film, and this movie is directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who are some of my favorite filmmakers alive. They directed movies like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Lego Movie, 21, 22 Jump Street, and were writers for or heavily involved with movies like Into and Across the Spider-Verse and Mitchell's vs. the Machines. And for reference, 4 out of these movies I would rate an A+. Like, they're really great. I think some of these are like genuinely masterpieces. I mean, The Lego Movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. Mitchell's vs. the Machines was like my favorite movie of 2021. Across the Spider-Verse is my favorite movie of the decade. Into the Spider-Verse is like my favorite movie of 2018. Like, they're really great movies. And I don't know, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller just know how to make like excellent movies that appeal to me especially. But then on top of that, you have Ryan Gosling as the lead, and he's one of my favorite actors alive right now. I mean, he was just great in Barbie, and he's been great in so many things. La La Land, he was excellent in. I love him in Drive, Blade Runner 2049. I mean, I can go on and on about the movies he's in and that he's great in. But I was really excited to see him do a lead role like this. Then you have Greg Fraser doing the cinematography, and he's probably my favorite director of photography maybe ever. So lots and lots of potential for this thing to be something special. And even before I saw the damn movie, it was like a never-ending sea of praise for it. Countless people saying it's a masterpiece, loads of people saying, it's already a contender for Best Picture next year, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and at the time of this recording, it's the 110th highest-rated movie ever on Letterboxd with over 1 million reviews. And that's just crazy. Like, it has all that praise. And so with all that praise, what do I actually think of the movie? I really liked it. I've seen it twice now. Both times I thought it was very good. Do I think it's quite as good as the praise would have you believe? I wouldn't quite say that. Do I think this movie lived up to what I expected from, all the, the marketing and the praise and all the expectations I listed before that? I don't quite think so, and this is where I really want people to hear me out. I still think this movie is really enjoyable and a very well-made film. It's a very good movie. I mean, just in terms of positives, I can go on and on about several things here. As expected, Phil Lord and Chris Miller do a great job directing. I still don't know why they got booted off the Han Solo movie. I mean, I know they said that, what their approach was maybe a little too goofy, a little more like Ace Ventura than a Han Solo. I don't know, just with the track record these guys have, I don't know why you would get rid of them for a movie. Like, it's just, they're so good. And even here, like, they just prove once again, like, they understand tone, they understand, how to do heart, they understand humor, like, they just get it all. Like, they understand how to make a movie that appeals to everyone. And I don't know what they were thinking with Solo. I can go on a rant about that for a while. I mean, that was something from a long time ago that still pisses me off to this day. They haven't even directed that many movies. Like, they've been involved with a lot of movies, but they haven't directed too many. But they're super talented with directing. And then you have the script from Drew Goddard, which is very good and has a great balance of comedy and drama and emotion, all those things you really want out of a movie like this. The cinematography is beautiful, and there are some great shots in space that basically had me in awe, especially in IMAX, and you pair that with the visual effects, which are also top-notch. I would say almost a guarantee to be nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Oscars, maybe even win them. Absolutely terrific in that way. The editing is great and feels especially impactful during key sequences. There's some great use of lighting and color throughout the movie, again, especially like relating to the planets. Like, there's this one green Green Planet, and like you get this one moment where it turns like very red. Just lots of great color. And again, lighting is very good too. A lot of the flashbacks in this movie are engaging and never feel like something that I wanted cut out of the movie. Flashbacks are a very risky move a lot of the time because a movie earlier this year, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, that movie constantly had flashbacks, and I thought the flashbacks were like, at times very good, but also really hurt the movie a lot. And in this case, I think the flashbacks, I'll get more into the flashbacks a little later regarding a problem I have with them. But for the most part, like if in terms of just the scenes themselves, they're very good scenes. And I think they're all very good at feeling like an essential part of the movie. And in general, the story here is very good. I don't even want to say too much about it because some people have been criticizing the trailers even, about parts they show that maybe they shouldn't have. And all I'll say is that this is a movie about saving the world and making friends in unexpected places. And at its core, this is a very human movie. It does kind of emphasize the power of friendship over a traditional grand space adventure, even think Interstellar from about a decade ago. I think part of me was expecting a little more space adventure from the trailers. And maybe, again, I had maybe Interstellar in the back of my mind of, like, what I thought this was going to be like. And so when I didn't get, like, a ton of that, ton of, like, exploring different planets and stuff, I was a bit surprised. But I do think that the whole friendship angle here is very strong and probably the best part of the movie. So it does kind of even out. On the first watch, I was a little bit, like, disappointed maybe that we didn't get more space stuff. But second watch, I was able to just kind of appreciate the friendship a little more. And I did appreciate the friendship the first time, too. It's a really nice bit of the movie and definitely where the heart of it is at. But Ryan Gosling is excellent here. I could totally see him being up for Best Actor because he really does have some great range in this movie. There's one scene in particular, maybe one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, just in this, this very dark shot of Ryan Gosling standing there and, just kind of reacting to something. And then you slowly see him, like, creep out of the darkness and just, like, the pure emotion on his face, like the raw emotion he has, was very touching and a very, very emotional scene to me. Definitely one of my favorites in the entire film, but just showed how good of an actor he is there because he doesn't really say much. The look on his face is everything you need to know, and that's when you know you're watching a great performance. I'd say Sarah Huller, I don't want to butcher her name, but she's very good in her scenes. I loved her in Anatomy of a Fall a couple of years ago, or maybe even more than that at this point. But she's a great actress. And James Ortiz is great as this character Rocky, who does have a lot of screen time. Doesn't show up for a while of the movie, but once you see Rocky, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that's a great character, great performance as well. I also have to shout out the score by Daniel Pemberton. It might actually be my favorite part of the whole movie. I've been listening to the music a lot since watching this film, and there's a ton of creative choices with it. It sounds excellent. It's very epic, and it just gets all the right feels. Like, it just has the right balance of everything in it. I love the music from this movie a lot. It's grown on me more and more as I listen to it more. And definitely something that I think you should be paying attention to if you do watch the movie. It's really great music. Let's see, tonally, I would say the movie has to balance a lot, and I think generally speaking, it does a good job of that. One of my issues with the film is that there are a couple times where we'll go from something very serious to something a little more lighthearted, and it can feel a little jarring from time to time. But it didn't ruin the moment to me. Like, and I'll get back to that a little more. But I think my biggest issue with the movie, and this is kind of what I was hinting at earlier, does have to do with the flashbacks. To put it in context, again, I like the flashbacks a lot. I don't mind the flashbacks themselves as an individual part of the movie. And I think all of them are actually necessary to give you a full picture of the story and, how the characters got to where they are. We understand by the end of it, like, I guess they're kind of used as, like, memories, like the characters kind of remembering things about the past. And I think as a whole, like, the flashbacks do play a big role in at least getting to know the characters a little bit more. You understand just the state everything is in and why the stakes are as high as they are and why characters had to do what they did. And it gives a very different feeling than I think the stuff in space. I mean, even the aspect ratio, which is just kind of how the shape, the shots are in. Like the space shots are much taller, whereas the flashbacks are a bit wider, a little, and if you're watching it flat, like on a TV, you'll see like black bars at the top and bottom. But anyway, I think the flashbacks themselves were well done. I think they were well used. But what I think needed to be done differently is how they were implemented throughout the film. And what I mean by that is the movie often chooses to sprinkle them throughout the entire runtime. And during the first half, it felt pretty natural to me. Like, I don't think it always, felt super weaved into the narrative of, like, when they were placed. Like, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a recent one that comes to mind, where the flashbacks often felt like, it didn't feel totally random to me. Like, it felt like they came at a point in the story where they were necessary. Like, when we needed to learn something new, like, got a flashback to kind of help us out a little bit. In the case of Project Hail Mary, it felt a little more random, kind of like, you'd be watching a certain part of the movie, and then all of a sudden it would just be like, okay, we're going to a flashback now. And I didn't mind that. I was like, okay, nothing's really happening right now, so it's a good time to do a flashback, I guess. But I think what became a little frustrating is that, especially in the second half of the movie, I noticed that, while I did like the scenes themselves and I thought they were good scenes, I didn't really love when they were placed in the movie. Like, as the story ramps up, as things with the characters ramp up and we're getting higher stakes, things are happening a lot faster, things are getting more intense, I didn't necessarily want a flashback there. And it kind of ties back to what I was saying about the tone of this movie. Like, and there's one particular instance where this did kind of frustrate me a little bit. There's one scene where something very big happens to a character, and instead of following it up, immediately, instead of just kind of getting right to the next part of the story, we get a flashback. And in that moment, I was thinking, we probably, should be done with the flashbacks by this point of the movie. Like, it was pretty late in the film, and I was like, at this point in the movie, I don't really want to go back to the flashbacks. I want to just continue the story, keep the momentum going. It reminded me of when some TV shows will do that. I think WandaVision was a big example of this, the Marvel show, where you had this, like, very big reveal at the end of an episode, and instead of, continuing that and kind of, like, moving the story forward more, we actually got, like, a flashback episode that was kind of, like, giving some history, and I think the reaction a lot of people had to that was, like, why'd you do that? You just killed the momentum there. And that's kind of a little bit of what I felt with Project Hail Mary in those moments, where I was like, I think at this point in the movie, when we're so late into it, we need to just kind of keep the momentum going. There's not really downtime for the flashback anymore. The first half, I think you should have gotten them all done. Like, 2/3 into the movie, we should be done with the flashbacks. Maybe you can keep one or two, for more at, like, the very end. But I think in general, like, I was just kind of done with the flashbacks. But I did think they were good scenes. So I'm not saying the scenes were bad. I'm saying the scenes were very good in of themselves, and when I was watching the scene, I'm like, this is a good scene, but I just would have liked to be done with them a little sooner. And on top of all that, I think the film also feels maybe a tad too long, like maybe 5 minutes or so could have been cut somewhere. Not really sure if that had to do with the flashbacks themselves and, like, when they were placed, because as I said, the pacing does come to a halt a little bit, so, if you put the flashbacks earlier in the movie, would the pacing feel a little better? Maybe, maybe not. Not quite sure, but I just think with the way the movie is laid out right now, I would argue you probably could have cut a few minutes somewhere. Hopefully I explained all that well. I'm not really sure if anyone else feels that way about the movie or if I'm alone in that. But to me, that was probably, like, the one big thing in this movie that was holding it back a bit for me from really, like, loving it. Like, just both times I watched it, the one thing that kept coming to mind is, like, I kind of wish these flashbacks were done a little bit sooner in the movie, and I kind of feel like the movie goes on just a little bit too long. But I do want to emphasize a lot that I really did enjoy this movie. It's very heartfelt, it's funny, the characters are great, There are a few very emotional scenes here. It's a smart movie. When it gets intense, you really feel it, especially during that fishing scene, that big fishing scene. It's a great moment in the movie, great scene. And at the end of the day, do I think this movie could be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars? I do. It's a very good movie that's resonated with a lot of people. I really can't think of, maybe Sinners last year, but, nowadays we don't get too many big original movies. And I know this is based on a book, but I mean original as in, not IP, where people will go, rush out to see it. Everyone's going to see it. There aren't a lot of movies I know where, everyone I know is just rushing out to go watch it. But that's happened with Project Hail Mary. It really is a movie that everyone, I think word of mouth has been great for it. Everyone's been talking about how good it is, so everyone wants to check it out and be in on what everyone's talking about. And it's a very good movie. I liked it a lot. I don't think I loved it the same way others did, but I enjoyed it a great deal. Both times I watched it, I thought it was a lot of fun. But at the same time, I'm not quite sure that this movie will be up there as one of my favorites of the year. Even right now, I don't think it's my favorite movie of the year. That would probably go to Hoppers. But time will tell. Maybe I'll rewatch it again in a few months and find that it's a masterpiece. But for now, at this very moment in time, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And I think a lot of people will have a great time with it. I think if you watch it and you're interested in it, I think you'll really like the movie. And I think it's safe to say most people like this movie. I think there are very few people out there who didn't like it. But yeah, Project Hail Mary, really solid movie. Enjoyed it a lot. I'm going to give it a B+. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.